Welcome to Yeukai Business Show, UK's premier business show where we feature business thought leaders, high achievers, and industry experts. Today's episode is brought to you by World Outsourcing Solutions Limited, a company that specializes in helping executive business owners with virtual assistant services and business growth systems. Here's your host, Yeukai Ketchidori.
Hi guys, welcome to another very special episode on this special broadcast. Today I'm privileged to be joined by a colleague, Drew Stevens. And today we'll be talking about the 3 Ps. Now, you may be wondering what are the 3 Ps. Stay tuned because Drew is going to be revealing that to you. And as always, we always want to bring you the best guests that can help you in your business today. Drew, thanks again for joining us on the show for the second time around.
It's my pleasure to be here, you guys. Thank you so much for having me.
You know what? I had forgotten the last time we were together was 2 years ago.
Just about, believe it or not.
Yes. And we're talking about entrepreneurship and all those things around that.
That's right.
Yes. Well, we are privileged to... Go ahead.
Looking forward to doing this one.
It's going to be great because since then you've been doing quite a lot of things, helping business owners in all areas of business life, really, and we're going to jump into that very shortly. But, you know, Drew, you've written 14 books and have written over 3,500 business articles today. And you've helped businesses from those that have got 12 employees to those that have got tens of thousands of employees. And today you're helping even a bigger audience here on the show. So we are privileged to have you on the show today.
I'm excited to be here. I really am.
Awesome. Now, for those who haven't caught our previous recording but want to know about you, give us just a very brief snapshot of who you are and what you do today.
Absolutely. As Yeukai said, it's Drew Stevens. I run the Stevens Performance Company, which primarily is a consulting and advisory company to small and middle-sized businesses. And one might say that I'm a turnaround expert. If the company is having an issue with revenue, if the company is having an issue scaling, I will help to transform that business into something absolutely remarkable. In addition to the consulting and advisory I provide, I also help provide debt or private equity if a company wants to scale, and I help the organization and its senior leaders protect the business with financial advisory and financial planning for retirement, for business exits, and anything that the company might need to protect its assets both now and in the future.
Awesome. And what have you been doing recently in light of COVID?
Well, a lot of it is teleseminars. A lot of it is teleconsulting and telecoaching. I am so used to phone and video chats now. It's the major portion of the day. However, some of the restrictions where I'm here have loosened ever so slightly, so I've been out a little bit more. And in addition to that, I do some adjunct instruction when I'm able to, and so I've been out to go to university and actually teach some hybrid classes, as it were.
Yes, yeah. And if I remember correctly, last time we were talking, you mentioned something that you've helped companies generate income in excess of $11 billion. That's a staggering figure. Tell us a bit about that, your journey to helping companies do that.
Well, the interesting thing is that what I find is that organizations, whether it's small or mid-size, fail to think about how the organization is going to run. And so what I do is I convert their thinking in both their employees as well as the senior management, even if it's a founder of a $500,000 organization. And I say to them, listen, nothing whatsoever happens unless the lights come on. And the lights in the organization are not going to come on unless you focus on 3 very vital things. Number one, who is your customer? Who is your niche that you're looking to develop or want or need? Number two, what is it that you intend on selling them that fulfills that need? And sales is a big part of it. We can go down that slippery slope to a certain extent. And the only reason why I say that, because many individuals that are running companies really don't invest in their sales people or their sales process. And that's vital to the success of the organization. And along with that last principle is then marketing. What many founders and many senior leaders fail to recognize is that the organization has got to be consistent and relentless with its marketing. If you're not marketing, then you're shriveling up like a raisin and you're going to die. You'll literally just shrivel. And too many individuals think, well, I only have to do this, or I only have to spend money here, or this is where I'm going to allocate resource. No, in today's environment, especially with what you just mentioned in COVID, people are bombarded with content. People are bombarded with other things, so their attention and their focus is not on your organization. And so if the attention is pulled away, that marketing construct is going to help bring them around. But more importantly, what you've got to be able to do with that marketing construct is to develop community. When you have community talking about you, very similar to how you and I met, you developed a podcast many years ago. People didn't know who Yeukai Cogitory was. And it was only because you continued to market consistent and relentlessly, you built a community. So now people are saying, he's got another guest. I've got to listen. Why? Because Yeukai's got another guest. But that's important because that's how you build that brand recognition. And that's what it's about at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I love what you touched on there, that you have to be relentless in building your brand, because if you don't, it's all just a talk, really.
Yes, that's exactly it. That's exactly. As I say to everybody as you take your drink there, folks, you have to be like Apple and Microsoft. You've got to build that largesse of a community, and more importantly, you've got to make certain that you're speaking with the community. What I tell folks, even yourself, you're not really in the business that you're in, your consulting practice, your podcasting practice. Realistically, you're in the marketing business, because what you do every day affects how that pull comes into your world.
Absolutely. I'm intrigued to want to talk about people, because this is one area you focus a lot. And, in our previous conversation, you noted that business owners don't place as high value as they ought to on the people they work, they get to work with. Talk to us about that.
Right. It's a great question. You'll see I'm smiling for a couple of different reasons. My PhD is in the leadership and management space, specifically in workforce productivity and job satisfaction. Right. Unfortunately, God led me on a different path and Jim Collins on another one. And the reason why I say that is because I was working on the exact thing as Jim Collins, but he came out with a #1 book and I came out with a thesis. But with that in mind, people make a difference. People are the largest part of an organization. It's not the product. It is not the location. It's not the senior management. It's the people that are close to the customer, speak to the customer, understand the value equation, and deliver. And too many organizations actually, at least here in the United States, let me separate this out a little bit because of my work in this field. What I find is that people are dismissed here in the United States. It's like they're just functional items and they get to do a job, get to do a job, get to do a job. In Europe and Asia, human resources is more of a part of the process. And both as I examined as well as Jim Collins did, you have to have the right people on the bus. You have to select, you have to recruit the right people in the organization that understand what your skills, how those innate skills apply to the value and the brand that you're wanting to create for the community. When you start to dismiss that, you're only hiring what's in a piece of paper, you're not going to get the best of the best. And if you want to be competitive, the best ideology you can have is to hire the best people, place them in the right seat, and just let them go.
Right. Incredible. Well, this is true. Even in my own business, I've discovered that without people, this is all just something that will never become a reality. But when you've got the right people, you can achieve tremendous results. For those who are listening, Drew, that seemingly having difficulties with finding the right type of people or even knowing what is the right person to have on their organization, what advice would you give them?
Many people ask me that question, and I know sometimes it sounds a little trite. But what I say to folks is listen, it does make good sense if, in fact, you'll just take a moment and really consider this. Start within your own community. Start with family, start with friends, start with customers. The reason why I say that, maybe because it might sound trite, is because they're not speaking to you previously in this way. You know what the skill sets are for that individual. If it's a previous customer, if it's a current customer, they know your value, they understand the business, and so bringing them into your world will make it that much easier, where they'll be much more bound to delivering on whatever guarantees that you want. Once you extend from there, then ask for referrals in that particular paradigm. Ask for individuals who might meet that criteria. Right. Now, last but not least, you can place, an ad out on the internet with Indeed and Monster and the myriad of other word search sites that there are. Mm-hmm. The fact is that you're going to wind up getting a horde of resumes, and unless the right keyword hits you, you're not going to get it. So that's why I say, stop with all of that work and the labor that goes into it, and try to reach out to your internal network first, because you'll be surprised how many folks will come back to you and reciprocate and provide you with the right talent.
Indeed. Talent is everything, and you've got to look after them. I'll tell you a fun story. When I started my virtual assistant business, as you know, over there in the Philippines, at first it was all about let's make quick money, people do the way I want. But I quickly realized that, if you don't invest in the talent you have, the chances are you won't be in business too long. But if you know how to manage your people very well, some of the people who work for me now have been with me for the last 8 years, which is incredible. And they know my business inside out. And, for those who are listening, you have to invest in people and pick the right people as well. Let's talk about... You mentioned about the processes as being the necessary thing that business owners need to really look at. What brought you to that conclusion?
Well, several things, but for reasons of spontaneity, because of the podcast, we don't have 2 or 3 days. but what has happened is that you find out through observation, and I'm what I call myself is an observational consultant. I look to see what's happening in the organization, and so for years, what I looked at was how things function, how things operated, and what I find as I aggregated data, Yeukai, is that here's the thing. Too many organizations miss their opportunities because they failed to do 2 things. Number one, they failed to lay out a customer journey. They never map that out. So what they do is they develop product, they conduct research and development, but they don't know the touch points from which a customer will find out about it through the time of acquisition and remaining in that customer lifetime cycle. That's one. 2 is that many organizations, both on the senior leadership side as well as both founders of entrepreneurial companies, they never mystery shop their own business. And so they're complaining about shipments getting lost, shipments getting broken. They're complaining about customers that are constantly leaving the nest. And what I found is when I started to ask the $64,000 question, have you walked the process? Have you surveyed people? The response I would always get is that, I don't need to do that. That's, somebody else's job. Somebody else's job has to do that. No, absolutely not. If you're the senior leader or you're the founder of the organization, it is your mission and it is your right to go through every touch point of the organization to make certain it works. Because at the end of the day, realistically, what you want to have is your employees thinking like a CEO. If they're thinking in terms of return on investment, if they're thinking in terms of the UX, the user experience, then you won't have issues because they'll understand what you're looking for and how to correct it when it's there.
Absolutely. This is really good. And the more I get to listen to such advice, the more it becomes so clear that if you get this wrong, you have a lot of headache along the way that you could ultimately, could stop you from running a business, but you can avoid it from, doing the right thing. Now,
correct.
You have helped thousands of people. How can those who are looking to create processes get started with this entire process?
Well, two things. One, obviously, you can come to my website, which is real simple. It's drew-stevens.com, and Stevens is with a V. Or you can call me, and the telephone number is right on the site. I'm actually changing over the site as we speak. So what you see today will be a little bit different tomorrow, and it will be tomorrow with the changeover. The other is, as you mentioned at the top of the podcast, I've written a series of books. And so I understand for some folks, there's the trust factor. For other folks, there is a misunderstanding factor. So in order to understand who Drew is, you can go out to Amazon and look for any of my books, acquire those at a really low investment, read through some of my theology. And if interested, contact me once you read the books and you see, okay, I can't do it on my own. I need him. He's got the tools. He's got the know-how.
Yes, yeah. That's why we have you on this show, because you have proven yourself that you have something that the business owners can use. Let's talk about procedures, the importance of procedures, and creating the right procedures. Especially to those who are starting up.
Yeah, that's another one of my, as I say, hot buttons. And the reason why I say that is because it's a good example. I'm working with a golfing facility of all things right now. Gentleman just started it. He put almost $10 million. He's erecting a building and doing some other things. And he now has both his salaried labor as well as his hourly labor taking advantage of him. They're leaving work early. They're taking days that they were never allocated. They're calling in sick, anything and everything that would happen in a major organization if we were one of the 500 top Fortune 500 firms. And what I say to these owners is simply this. What we need to start you out with is, number one, you need to have an owner's manual. There needs to be a manual that overviews the strategy of the organization, which also includes the vision, and values, which are vital. The second thing that you need to then have is, what are the operating hours and what are the expectations for every employee? And you list that within your owner's operating manual. Days off, holiday, you place in their sick pay, vacation day, you place in their forms that are necessary, and most importantly, and this, Yeukai, is where there's a lot of issues over the course of time, and that is, you actually list a job description, and you actually have the employees sign that job description. Because here's the interesting thing. I just developed this operating manual for the firm, and literally people are taking that operating manual and doing their own thing and not sticking to what's in the framework. And so I look at the owner at that point, and I said, we have two issues. Issue number one, you hold them accountable, which is a big issue on the corporate side. Issue number two is you go back to the employee and say, hey, excuse me, but you've signed a document. And so if you've signed a document, this is what my expectations are, and I'm holding you accountable simply because you understand what your role is in this firm.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Excuse me.
You're fine.
One of the things I find business owners tend to struggle with when it comes to creating procedures is having people who follow through, because they are probably very busy running around, but they find it difficult. Who is going to police that? What's your take on that?
That question is a great one, because if you didn't bring it up, I was going to. And that is simply this. Great minds think alike. Here's what I find in today's world. I actually find a couple of different things, especially in the paradigm we're now in. But let me jump back to January, February, call it pre-COVID or COVID dawn, as I'm now calling it. What I have found is that managers, even from a small organization to the top 500 firms in the world, there is a lot of fear about confronting an employee. I think what we have seen around the globe, not necessarily in Asia, but we've seen it in minuscule amounts in Europe. We've certainly seen it here in North America. There is workplace violence. If it's not in the media, it's on social media. If it's not in social media, it's happening regionally. And so many managers have kind of pulled back and really don't want to engage in conflict and confrontation. What I've now seen, by the way, is with all of this, now that we're fully embedded in COVID, that now is amplified, because if Mr. Cacciatore is my manager, as Mr. Stevens, the employee, I'm now telling Mr. Cacciatore, well, I'm so busy taking care of my children, and I have my cat that needs to be fed, and I just can't keep up with all of the work. And so it becomes excuse after excuse after excuse. And so I go back to what the premise is here. Number one, you've got to engage in conflict. Your job as a manager, that is part of the job description. You have to confront, and you're going to have to conflict with an employee that is not accountable and not being delegated to the way it was delegated to. Number two, if the employee resists, then we get into write-ups, we get into verbal issues, and then we have to allocate it to HR. Especially in today's world, now that we're in total COVID, I look at it this way. Number one, as a manager, you should be accepting resignations 24 hours a day, 7 days a week under any circumstance. Number two, however, is that with the amount of layoffs that there are in today's world, whether it's in hospitality or airline or wherever, the fact remains is that you're still accountable to the work. If you don't want to do that, work now has become a right, not a privilege. You now are working because we believe that you can do the job. But if you're going to continually pull back, I will find 500 other different people that are more willing to do the job than you want to do it, because you don't have the time, you come up with excuses, and on and on and on and on.
Incredible. Well, the reason I ask it, you have articulated it so well, is I hear that as well. Like, I've got more responsibilities, I'm adjusting to a new environment. That may be true, but there comes to a point where you still need to get results being delivered in what you're doing.
Absolutely. And Yeukai, if I could just add to that, I said to you when we, even 2 years ago, I do some adjunct instruction. And so one of the places that I teach at says that their demographic are people 38 years of age or older, and they're going back to get an academic degree, whether it's undergraduate or graduate. And so I was told, listen, they have other things in their life, so you're going to have to give a little bit of marginality if they're late with their assignments. And I fought back, because my attitude is what are we teaching these folks then? Whether you're 38 or whether you're 28, what am I teaching you? That when your mortgage payment comes in, you're allowed to submit it late? That when you have an appointment, you're allowed to arrive late or not show up at all? Absolutely not. And business at the end of the day is about accountability. It's about getting things done. It's about results. And that may seem a little hardcore, but you know what? That's where I think that what separates me from other consultants. And that is, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you about those things that are going to give you the results that you need. You don't need yes men or yes women. You need somebody that's going to step in and illustrate to you why your organization is not running correctly and how to right the ship and not take on any more water.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. I would like to talk about your financial advisory role that you're providing to a lot of business owners, if we may. I think we still have got some more time here. Talk to us about that branch of your business.
The financial advisory you're talking about?
Yes.
So I got into that a couple of years ago, and without going into the story, that allows me to become much more homogeneous to an organization that comes to me and says, I have an issue. In addition to that, I now become more of a consultant or an advisor because now I'm looking for other things that will help the organization become more healthy.
Yeah.
And it's intriguing, especially now in today's times with COVID. The reason why I say that is because what I have found, two instances especially related to here and now focus. Number one, 74% of most businesses are reliant on two people in the organization to run the organization. That's one. 84% of organizations do not have an exit plan at all. They have no idea if you're a business owner and you're asked, so what happens if you get sick? What happens if you unfortunately pass away? No one has an answer to that. And so what I have looked at is how can I become a more inclusive provider of services to somebody that's looking for my counsel. And so what I have come to determine is that helping them with some of their insurance needs, helping them with some of their financial planning needs will assist them with liquidity. It will assist them to live a better life because they can plan for retirement. And most importantly, we all, you and myself, Yeukai, we want to provide a legacy to our children where we can, or other points of family. Now, here's the interesting thing. Talking about statistics, 94% of individuals don't want to talk about death. They don't want to talk about public speaking. They don't want to talk about insurance. But it's something that you need. Financial planning, retirement planning, legacy planning, estate planning is something that you need. And so acting as a fiduciary, more in a Catholic term, not necessarily in the specificity of a fiduciary, it is my privilege then to illustrate to these senior leaders or even these founders of the organization how they might be able to think about, well, what happens should somebody want to close the doors at some point in the future? Or what happens at some point should one of those top two employees become ill? And so just to finish this off, and I'll have you ask questions, but as an example with COVID, there is insurance available if a business owner gets ill, that what would happen is that expense then actually pays all of the employees' salaries, and it pays for all of the utility bills within the organization. Doesn't pay the owner's salary, but it pays everybody else. And you know what? In today's world where restaurants are shutting and the United States government is giving bailout money, that's a wonderful thing to have, should somebody become disabled. And the same thing holds true if one of the key people gets disabled in the organization. They will be able to be secured. A lot of owners say, hey, John is my top sales rep. Well, have you ever thought what happens if John, heaven forbid, gets into an auto accident? If he falls off a ladder, putting on a roof over the weekend? None of those things are thought of. They need to be. They really need to be.
Outstanding. You know what? Unfortunately, we haven't got enough time, but we definitely would love to talk to you about the exit plan, because that's something I know business owners definitely needs to know how to create that exit plan, the whole processes around that, and how to know if you're doing the right thing. Because it's one thing for business owners to think this is my exit plan, but
right.
You always need to have somebody else who specializes in that, who have seen it all, can say, yeah, this falls short here and there. So,
right.
With time, maybe we could have you on another special episode specifically for creation of exit plans.
I would love to do that. And you'll notice that I call it an exit versus a succession plan, because succession sounds so corporate. But it is something advisable, because the question then becomes, so if you close the door, you lock the door and walk away, what are you going to do with the equipment? What happens to those customers? And at some point, whether it's you, UK, or somebody else, you're going to want money for all of those years that you put in. And, some people shut those doors, and it's literally the current amount of money that's in the savings account. But wouldn't it be great if you were able to get a payout over time so that you got what you thought, the valuation of the organization was, so that you can live a comfortable life in your remaining years?
Indeed. Outstanding. Well, as we come toward the end of our time here together, Drew, would you remind people again where they can find you should they want to continue their education with you?
Absolutely. The website is Drew, Stevens, STEVENS.com. My telephone number is 314-574-9716. You could use WhatsApp, and I'm available through that. You could look on LinkedIn or Facebook, and you'll be able to find me there. And you can certainly send me an email if you'd like, if you have a specific question. I'm sure in addition to some of the great questions UK has asked, you may have a question here or there. And that email is drew@drew-stevens.com.
Incredible. I've left a lot of questions here because of our time. So, there is a lot of knowledge that you have there that I'm sure will benefit our listeners today. Drew,
I'll tell you what, if you want, with your blogging, send me the questions and I'll just send responses back, and you can put them up as a blog post if that'll help.
Absolutely. Yes, we can do that. We always finish by asking, Drew, if you were to give yourself an advice, when you were starting maybe 20, 30 years ago, and you are advising yourself on the business, the journey ahead, what would you say?
Oh man, that's a great question. It's from that actor's studio. What would you say if you went to heaven? I think it would be, if you don't mind, it would be three things. Number one, know your niche. I played around with my niche for too many years, and really having that true what that niche was would be exceedingly helpful. Number two, know a little bit more. It's amazing because I've always known about marketing. It's where my academic degrees are, but I never considered it true entrepreneurial perspective, and it's all about marketing. You're in the marketing business, and you're not in the business. And last but not least, because you're into virtual assistantship, delegate. Stop it all. You need to get help from somebody. You can't do it all. It's not possible.
Amazing. Thank you again. That is incredible. Absolutely incredible. There you have it. If you want to know more and find out how you can move your business from where it is to where you want it to be, you can reach out to Drew Stevens, or even reach out to us, or join our group, which you can find the link somewhere around here. And we are always talking about business, how we can help you right where you are. And I hope you've taken something from today's session applied. Again, if you get stuck, shout out and we'll be here to help you. With that said, have a great day, and I look forward to having you on another episode. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Yeukai Business Show. We will be back to bring you more episodes with success stories and advice straight from the experts. Want more? Check out www.yukaibusinessshow.com. Get your free trial of our virtual assistant service today. Just visit www.worldoutsourcingsolutions.com. Quote WOS18, or send us an email at support@worldoutsourcingsolutions.com.